Start recording, and now we're recording. And I'll hit record on this side. All right, perfect. All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the BJJ Foxcast. I'm your host, Alex Martinez, and today we're with a good friend of mine, Tiffany Gaughan. Tiffany is a bodybuilder. She's a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. She's a diet coach. She's a fitness coach, and she's one of the hardest working people I've ever met. Tiffany, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking, I know, but just, it's just two of us having a conversation, no big deal. So tell me a little bit, we're going to get right into it, okay? So tell me a little bit about where you're from and how you ended up in Arizona.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Virginia. I met my husband, Tom, who is actually a black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and the reason why I even started in Virginia. And then we moved to California. And then from California, we moved to Arizona, all because of his job.
Oh, okay. So it was just work straight up going back and forth. Yeah, just all
work for him. I was a hairstylist in Virginia for 8 years and then in California. But then when we moved to Arizona, I still did hair, but I've kind of got out of it. Went back to school, studied nutrition, that kind of stuff.
Okay. So when you actually did hair, you actually owned your own business, right?
Yes, we did. Yeah. Only for a couple years. We thought it was like a super cool idea. We decided to convert this like travel trailer into like this full-fledged salon. And at first it was like this amazing idea, but it was so much work. And honestly, I was so burned out by weddings and people.
Yeah.
Really.
Oh, running a business is really tough.
Especially weddings and events, like people are they just have very high expectations. And it's really difficult to find people that can cater to people that are just hard to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm a business owner as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah. So you work really hard at developing this deliverable, right? Your salon. I mean, how can you complain about, I'm coming to you to do your hair. You don't have to go anywhere.
I mean, in the most beautiful places too. Like we would take it to Sedona.
Oh, wow.
We had some pretty amazing places that we took it, but it was just so much work.
Yeah. So you started that business, and is it dissolved, or is it kind of like a side gig that you do now?
Yeah, so we actually sold the travel trailer. I still do hair and makeup for friends and family, but that's really it. So yeah, we dissolved that, and everything I do now is just all fitness related, nutrition related. That's really what I'm most passionate about. So instead of forcing the one, I decided to just go with what I'm like most passionate about.
Yeah, but it sounds like you're passionate about like 7 things. We're going to go one at a time, though. We're going to go one at a time.
I have a tough time deciding.
Yeah. No, that's great, though. Let's talk a little bit about the bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So when you and I met, we were both training at Paul Nava's place. I was coaching a little bit, and you were in one of the classes. Mm-hmm. It was... you're one of the smaller people in the class, but you're also one of the most hardworking. So you really held your own against much larger people, which is really great. But I never knew about the bodybuilding until, I think until you started kind of working up towards the event. What was it, a year ago?
Yeah. Yep. November. Yeah. So a little less than a year ago, but yeah, I didn't really talk about it a lot because for a while I wasn't really sure how to approach. I mean, obviously, the bodybuilding thing is so different from jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. They're complete polar opposites.
Okay.
And also, I mean, you're like posting pictures of yourself on stage in like this teeny tiny bikini. And I had just had a daughter, so it kind of felt like people would be like, well, what happened? I think I was like almost like, well, it's just a different, how do I explain it? Like, I just kind of felt like people would look at me and be like, well, why don't you look like that anymore? And it's actually a look that is only achievable for one day. And that is something that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit because you did a competition 10 years prior to that, right?
A lot, actually.
Yeah, a lot? Okay.
Yeah, so, I competed for maybe 6 years, I think.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's talk about what the catalyst was for that. And I love the story because I caught a little bit of it, right? Okay, I'm going to give a little brief description. I'm going to screw it all up. But you were on an airplane.
Yeah.
And you saw, like, was it one of those airplane magazines that nobody reads?
No, it was actually, I was at the airport. I don't even remember where I was going. I think, like, my best friend was baby shower or something. I was by myself, and I had been getting ready for our wedding. And I was literally doing everything I thought I was supposed to do. Now, growing up, I wasn't really athletic. I never played sports really. never lifted weights, nothing. So I had just been taking like group classes that you see at the gym, you know, where they're in there with like their little tiny weights and bouncing around like a step, because I really had no idea what I was doing. And I saw this magazine and this girl looked amazing. And I'm like, I'm dieting. I'm doing all these things. Why don't I look like this?
Yeah.
And so I literally found her email and reached out to her and said, I want to look like you. How do I do it?
Wow. And she responded?
She did. Yep.
No kidding.
Yep. She owned a gym here, actually in Gilbert, Arizona. It's so weird how like it's like full circle. And yeah, and so that's kind of how my fitness journey kind of began.
Yeah. So you were doing all of these fitness programs like through whatever fitness.
Yeah.
And you were dedicated, you were dieting, you thought you were doing all the right things, but you weren't looking like the girls in the magazines. I think that's a really common thing for people, right?
I think so, yeah.
Because if you look at a men's journal, health, whatever magazine today, it's probably the same ads or same publication that it was 10 years ago. How to get this abs and how to do this, right?
Yeah, it's all the same. It's all regurgitated information over and over and over. Yeah.
So tell me about the transition from going from a novice, I consider a novice, right, doing those group fitness classes, to being on stage. I mean, on display, right? I mean, it's
yeah. Well, I actually have kind of a funny story. So I was doing all those group classes, and I was actually approached by a group instructor, and they were like, "You would be so good at this." And I thought to myself, I've never been in front of people. I was really shy. When my husband met me, I was so shy.
Yeah.
I'm such a different person now. I would have been so embarrassed to like just mess up or like say the wrong thing or trip over my own feet. And like now I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
But so she approached me and she thought that, you know, you'd be this great fitness instructor. So I did the certification, and then I went to teach my first class, and I froze.
Oh.
I froze. It was awful.
What kind of class was it?
It was like one of those old school kickboxing classes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was just like kind of like a choreographed kickboxing. And I totally froze.
No way.
And it was awful. And I was mortified. I was like, I will never teach another class. And I had already started kind of training for the first bikini competition, and Tom and my best friend, we went to the mall. I had to get a special bikini. So if you've ever seen any of the bikini competitors, they're like these little tiny butts on the bikini, and like they're scrunched. So it has to be a scrunch butt. I had to send my progress photos in a scrunch butt bikini. As silly as that sounds, I had to go find one. And back then it was like pretty difficult to find.
Sure.
So we go to the mall and we're looking, and we find this store that sells them. So I go into the dressing room to put it on, and I would not come out. I was like, I can't come out. I was like in tears. Like I would not come out. And like my best friend had to like coax me out. She's like, it's literally your husband and me.
Oh.
Why won't you come out? And I come out and I'm crying. And I was like, there's no way I can do this. I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I bought the stupid bikini. I went home. I had to have a conversation with myself, and I continued my training. But with that being said, I said again. Keep saying
That's okay. That's okay.
But with that being said, the first time I flew out to Arizona to practice my posing with my coach, it was in a gym. And I assumed that I was going to be in like a room alone with the coach, and we were going to go over my posing. And I had never done anything like that before. I was never a dancer. I didn't know how to move my hips like that.
Yeah.
And so they expected for me to come out of the bathroom into the gym where everyone is training in this tiny bikini and do the posing. I was shaking like a little kid, scared to death that there's a monster in their closet, you know, but I did it.
Wow.
And, you know, I started learning along the way that I can do hard things.
Yeah.
That it's important to get uncomfortable. It's important to do that, because without being uncomfortable, I'm not going to grow. I'm not going to change.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be the same shy person that I was. And so it kind of taught me a lesson that like, it's okay to step out and be a little bit uncomfortable.
So was that the first step to getting on stage? That walking out of a dressing room in front of your best friend and your husband, that's step one.
Yeah.
And then you stepped into the gym.
Yeah.
And then did you just get a little bit more comfortable in your own skin and having that bikini on, and then
I did. So my first show, I actually did pretty well for my first show. I placed 5th. So back then, the top 5 was like a big deal back then.
Yeah.
it really, that gave me a sense of confidence placing in the top 5. I was like, I worked so hard. I did everything I was supposed to do. I just need to keep doing this. But I don't think I really got comfortable in my own skin for a long time. I actually think that the competing actually started to eventually deflate me and deflate my self-esteem, because unlike jiu-jitsu, where you go to a tournament and like you either win or you lose. Yeah. And I mean, obviously you learn something along the way. However, unless it goes to ref's decision, you either won or you lost. And it's from your athletic ability. It's from your technique. When you're on stage, you're being judged sheerly by what they find is attractive to them, what they think that you should look like. And I started to it started to really eat at me, because it was like, well, will I ever be able to win? Am I ever going to win? Am I ever going to look the way they expect me to look? Yeah. So actually, no, I don't think that really gave me a sense of self-confidence. I actually think it started to hurt. Wow. Hurt it more. Wow. But I felt like I had to do it because it was the only thing I knew at the time. I didn't realize that what I was doing wasn't really training athletically.
Yeah. And I think it's important that people hear that, because when we look in magazines and we see those ripped abs and we see people in those bikinis, we're like, oh my gosh, we want to look like that. Yeah. Right? How do I get that body? Yeah. And people don't understand how mentally, physically, and their relationships, how people suffer getting to that point.
For sure. I've watched many relationships suffer from it. And people, like women especially, like it's not, naturally we're not supposed to be that lean. Right. Like we really aren't.
Neither
we're
not
are supposed to walk around with like a 6-pack all the time. And like our bodies fight against us to get that lean. We're not meant like hormonally to put on the kind of muscle that you need. But with that being said, a lot of people don't understand that a lot of those models, like they are, they're cutting some water. They're doing some of the same things that we kind of do to cut weight to be able to look like that the day of that photo shoot. Yeah. They don't look like that. They're posting their highlight reels on Instagram. Yeah. They're posting leading into a competition. They're posting the days after the competition. It's when they kind of get a little bit silent or they start resharing the same stuff you've seen before that you know that they don't have abs right now. Right. And unfortunately, not being comfortable with yourself is when they get silent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because now they've seen themselves look a certain way, and then they expect to, like, well, I had abs. What happened to my abs? Now people aren't going to want to follow me anymore because I don't have my abs, or my glutes aren't popping, or whatever it is that they think that they need to look like.
Yeah, and I see that every day. Not to that scale, but I see this every day in my at the academy. Yeah. We have sales appointments with people coming in, and they were athletes at one point, or they were police officers, or they are police officers, and they put on 50, 60, 70 pounds, and they don't realize, like, they don't even know how it happened. Yeah.
It's like you just wake up one day. You wake up one day and you don't realize that you were starting just eating a little bit bad for a while, and then all of a sudden it was like late night started adding up to that weight. And not taking care of yourself.
Yeah, and I think you get to a point where you're not getting any bigger. Yeah. So it's like okay, right? Yeah. But you're still 250 pounds. Yeah, exactly. Right? On a 5'5" frame. Yeah. Yeah. So it can be a little strange. Let's talk a little bit about the reality of that, living that lifestyle. Yeah. So you said you did 6 competitions back in the day, about 2000?
6 years, so probably more than 6. Okay. For one whole season, I think I did 6 shows in a season.
You did 6 shows?
Was seriously so unhealthy. Like, I was just beating myself into the ground. And this was with bad coaching. Now, I do have a really amazing coach right now who would never allow me to do this. But back then, there wasn't as much information as we have now. Yeah. But I was doing like 2 hours of cardio a day, plus weight training. I mean, it was like a part-time job.
How are you doing that and basically denying yourself the nutrients you need to recover? How are you pulling that off? Is it, because you're not old. I mean, you're young, but still that's a lot of pressure to put on your body. Yeah. I mean, did you suffer injuries?
Oh yeah. So not really injuries, but, your body gets to a point where it knows it's starving, right? So you're starving it and you're doing countless hours of cardio, lots of weight training, and it's not going to give you what it needs anymore. So you're not going to look like you need to look on stage. You're not going to look how you want to look. And eventually it's going to start rebelling against you. And that's what my body did. It started storing fat because it needed it to be able to survive.
Yeah.
And each prep continued to get more and more harder. And then instead of reevaluating what my diet looked like, because my coach at the time was, like I said, it was just a very bad fit, they would just add more cardio, and it would just be more cardio and more cardio. And it was just like I was cardioing myself into this tiny little, I mean, I think maybe I weighed on stage 98 pounds. And
wow.
I mean, I'm little, but that's really
little.
Like right now when I get on stage, I might weigh 107 to 109 pounds. That's a big difference.
Yeah. And what would you say your body fat percentage was or is when you're on the show?
So there's a huge misconception about women's body fat percentages. So like bodybuilders, like men bodybuilders, can get below single digits.
Yep.
Because they're built different than women.
Yeah.
Women, however, if you get really any lower than 12%, you're in a really bad spot.
That is really bad. Yeah.
That is really bad.
I would say that's the equivalent of like 4% for men.
Yeah. I would. And at that 4% for men, and I'd say most bodybuilders hang out at 6.
Yep.
Like if you actually were to do like the dunk tank, which is the most the best way to figure out what your body fat percentage is. But yeah, so I would say I was probably between 15 and 16% at my last 2 shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the last 2 shows. You were training for a bodybuilding competition, much to my dismay, because you were not training jiu-jitsu at the time. But you really dedicated yourself, and you were still coaching at our academy.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, Tiffany is our strength and conditioning coach at Aries East Mesa BJJ, and I've done your class twice for a reason. It's a really, really hard class.
It is.
And what I really admire about your coaching style and just you in general is your ability to just bring it. There is never a lull in your class. It's always high energy.
Yeah.
The music is awesome. You're always encouraging.
Yeah.
And most of the time I'm in my own head saying, God, please make her shut up. You know, I'm just so angry all the time.
Because I'm always screaming affirmations at people or telling you it's almost done.
But I appreciate that so much at the end, right? It means a lot. And understanding now what you were going through preparing for that competition, you were tired.
Oh yeah.
A lot of the time, and you were still bringing it.
Yeah.
So that's really admirable. And I remember going to your competition. A group of us went.
Which was amazing, by the way. That was like the best feeling in the world to have all the support from the academy there.
It was awesome. It was awesome. And I had never been to one. I've seen the bodybuilding magazine.
So boring.
No, it was. Well,
it's so boring.
It's a long day, folks.
It's a very long day.
No, but you had several competitions. You had you were in several divisions, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But I remember. Okay, so I see you every day. So you're Tiffany, right? I see you every day. So you walk out on stage, and there were abdominals. You look like you were 6 feet tall and all abs.
It was
crazy, ridiculous.
Right? Yeah,
it was amazing.
It's amazing what clear heels and like obviously you're limited with the water on the day of the show and pretty much the day before they kind of cut it a little bit. I mean, you still get water, but yeah, it's amazing what that can do.
Yeah. So tell me about the difference between 10 years ago where you did not feel like an athlete and what was it, a year ago?
Yeah.
A year ago, and you said you felt like an athlete this time. So tell me the difference between the training.
So the training 10 years ago, like I said, it was very cookie cutter diet. Like everyone on the team got the same diet. Why I thought this was a good idea, I have no idea, but I didn't know any better back then. I was just getting into like loving nutrition and understanding even how the body worked at the time. So honestly, because I went in and I lifted like 5-pound weights, I didn't know how to, I didn't have a trainer then. I was sent all this information. This is what you do on Monday. This is what you do Tuesday, blah, blah, blah. Right. And so I just went in and I did it and I tried to execute the best way I knew how, but I really didn't know.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know that I had to lift heavier and eat a little bit more to put on muscle. So as I was training for those shows back then, I was lifting light, high rep, doing lots of cardio. I was just thin. I was just very skinny at the time. And so 10 years later, enter Tiffany, who's been lifting heavy, crushing food, trying to put on muscle because I love the look of I like looking athletic.
Yeah.
I like looking like I played the part, you know? And I mean, it makes me feel good to lift weights. I like going into the gym and it's my time. I put a podcast on or some like heavy music and I'm like doing my thing.
Awesome.
But so it's different now. Like my competition leading into the first show that I did back, I was in phenomenal shape even going in because I had been working with the same trainer that you train with, Ben.
Yep.
And also doing jiu-jitsu like sometimes twice a day, but at least 5 or 6 days a week I was doing jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
So my conditioning was on point when I decided to go ahead and do the first show that I did.
So let's rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
And after your first, I should say, your first stint in this in that competition, right? Was it NPC back then? Okay.
Yep.
So
It's okay. National Physique Committee.
Yeah. Yep. I remember the NPC, but I couldn't remember what it stood for. So I'm a novice when it comes to that stuff.
That's okay.
So NPC. And then you kind of, let's call it graduated from that, right? That kind of got the athletic juices flowing. You started studying nutrition. You started learning your body.
Yep.
And you went into a phase where you were in CrossFit for a while. So tell me about CrossFit and how that changed your outlook on your physical appearance.
After I've decided, you know what, I can't compete anymore. I was just in a really bad place, like physically and mentally, because I was so discouraged by the fact that I wasn't placing well. And here, I felt like I was doing all the things my coaches were telling me, and it wasn't working. Nothing was working. And I hired people to help like reverse diet and like figure out my metabolism. And it was just like nothing was working. And I was like, screw it. I kind of just was like, I give up. I'm never competing again. I'm not getting back up on stage. I had a really unhealthy relationship with food because I was scared to eat. I was so scared to eat because for the longest time I'm eating asparagus and chicken or asparagus and tilapia and very limited carbs. So my relationship with food needed work on. I needed to learn how to actually train and be an athlete. I realized that I could do this. I could be an athlete.
Yeah.
I was still young at the time and I was like, I want to try something that makes me feel good. And actually, where Tom, my husband, was training at the time in Northern California that had jiu-jitsu, they had a CrossFit gym.
Same place?
Same place,
oh,
yes.
That's pretty convenient, man.
It was amazing. So he'd do jiu-jitsu on one side and I'd be doing CrossFit on the other. And the owner of the gym at the time on the CrossFit side, Freddie Camacho, and now he's married to China Cho. China Cho was like one of the leading CrossFitters at the time. CrossFit Games, I think she's coming second or third. I can't really keep track. I can't remember. But she was my coach. They were both my coaches. And Freddie was one of the coolest men I've ever met. He was head of the SWAT in Union City. He held the golden gloves for boxing. He trained jiu-jitsu. He trained Krav Maga. You mess with, like, I wasn't going to mess with that guy. If something was going down, I'm calling him.
Yeah, get behind him.
Yeah, and an amazing CrossFitter. And
now, is this Virginia or is this California?
This is California. Yeah.
Okay.
And so they took me kind of under their wing. I think they could feel that they needed this. Like, and I work hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they saw. So at first, China actually, I don't think she even liked me at first. Because here comes me, little miss like bikini competitor, bebopping in, my bright Lululemon clothes, thinking that I'm going to be able to just keep up with everybody.
Yeah.
CrossFit's tough.
It's so hard.
CrossFit's hard. And I have never lifted heavy. I had never done Olympic lifting.
Yeah.
But I went in there determined. I'm going to do this. And I think she liked that. She saw that I was there every day.
Yeah.
I didn't care how tired I was. I was showing up. I'm going to show them that I can do this.
Yeah.
And I need to show myself too. But at the time, I felt like that was my driving factor. You're going to like me. I'm going to make you like me.
There's something about somebody that just works hard.
Yeah.
That every coach I gravitate to that person.
Yeah.
Mainly because I don't want them to burn out. I want to kind of feel them out, see what they're made of.
Yeah.
And it's we have a student at our academy at Sierra, and when Sierra first walked through the door, I saw so much raw talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And athleticism.
She's amazing.
And she's such a hard worker.
She is.
And I don't know, for some reason, I just want her to succeed.
Yeah.
And I'm going to help that, right? So I'm sure they saw a lot of that in you.
Yeah. They definitely, I feel like they really tried to like guide me in the right direction. And she could see that I was really enjoying the Olympic lifting. Like I'd never been able to move my body like that. Yeah. And this was cool. I'm like throwing this heavy weight over my head. And, it took time. And then I remember the first time that we really tried to go for the heaviest squat that I've ever done. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite things. I still have the video, and her and Freddie were there. And it was like they follow this special programming, and leading up to it, you keep trying to get to your 1 rep max. What is your 1 rep max? And I was so scared. I was like, I cannot fail. Yeah. And I ended up squatting that day like 207.
Nice.
And I was just over the moon, because I never thought in a million years that my 125-pound frame could ever push up 200 pounds.
I was going to say that was almost twice your body weight.
Like I have that video, and I can hear Freddie in the background screaming, and China's like, making sure I come all the way up. And it was like the best feeling in the world. And I realized then, like, I'm an athlete. Yeah. I'm actually an athlete. Like, why did I not believe in myself before? Like during the competing, like in the bodybuilding, it was like, I just really didn't believe that I was capable. I didn't really believe that I could actually be successful. But here I am, and I'm running faster than I've ever ran. I'm lifting heavier. I'm snatching weight over my head, clean and jerks, better than people that have been training for a long time. Yeah. And like that is where I feel like I finally felt comfortable in my own skin. I finally felt like I don't care what I look like. Mm-hmm. They see me at my worst. Yeah. They see my ugly grunt faces when I'm squatting heavy weight, because you never look good squatting heavy weight or lifting anything heavy. Yeah. And so I finally felt like, you know what? I'm an athlete, and I'm proud of myself.
That's great. That's great. So let's talk about the difference between nutrition in CrossFit versus the Npc competitions. Yeah. How did your relationship with food change thanks to CrossFit?
Yeah. So I was like I was saying, it was a lot of chicken and asparagus, and I hated fish for a long time. I still don't really like it, but I'll eat it. I started realizing that if I didn't crush food, I wasn't lifting weight. Wow. And so I would go in, I would just like burn out really fast. And like these people that I knew I could be stronger than them. I knew that I was faster than them. Why am I burning out? And I just started connecting the dots. I started realizing, I started watching what China was eating. I started watching what, some of the other people that I really admired in the gym were doing. And they were eating. They were actually eating food that looked good and appetizing, and they weren't scared to go out and eat after the workout. Yeah. We would go out, and I hadn't been into restaurants and out eating really, because I wouldn't allow myself to do that. And we would go out and we would crush food, and it was the most honestly, the most liberating thing when you start realizing that if you nourish your body and you feed it right, it's going to do such amazing things for you.
So before I met you, or before you and I started working together, basically, right? Because you were my first real nutrition coach. Yeah. And thanks to you, I didn't have to cut any weight for Worlds last year. I walked in on weight. Yay. And I felt amazing.
That's awesome.
But you scared me a little bit, because when you wrote, Tiffany wrote a diet plan for me, and it was a 3-page, multifaceted, if this, then that kind of plan. Yeah. And it was so detailed. It's fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing that. But before I started working with you, I may have allowed myself 60 grams of carbs a day, maybe on a good day, or a bad day, in my opinion. Right? It was very heavy fat and protein. And once we switched from 60 to almost 200 at one point. Yeah. My energy level was ridiculous. My body composition was changing. Everything was changing. Yeah. I felt, like you said, I felt like a freaking athlete.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people have a misconception that carbs are going to make you fat or make you gain weight. And mind you, the scale can go up, especially if you're just starting to add them in. They're going to go up.
That happened. Yeah.
Yeah. But eventually it's going to level out, and your body's going to start using it in the way that it needs to. because you have the fuel, the proper fuel to be able to get more explosive.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to move faster. You're going to be able to do things because you have that stored energy and you're using it appropriately.
Right.
You're not coming, you're not eating a bunch of carbs and sitting on the couch and Netflixing.
Right.
You're at the gym.
Yeah. You're actually putting in the work.
And if anyone's a hard worker, I mean, like watching you, I mean, you make me want to work harder. As I watch you train and I realize how hard you're drilling, I'm like, well, I need to drill a little bit faster. If he can do it, I can do it.
Well, I appreciate that. And, it's one of those things like when you start to see the result, when you really start to see the result, because for me, making weight was like, okay, I'm 189 pounds. I got to get to 175 next week.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's just sauna and misery, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's like the wrestling from a long time ago.
Yep.
Like jiu-jitsu's kind of adopted that same kind of like, this is how you have to cut weight. And actually taking that class with Mike Dolce really opened my eyes because I knew nothing about cutting weight before I started jiu-jitsu, but I'm immersing myself in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I want to be able to help people.
Yeah.
I don't even care about the money. I just want to see people be successful. Like at the end of the day, like if any piece of advice I can give you helps you, able to make weight less painfully or more healthy, because I watch some of these kids and I'm like, you will not perform as well. I know you're a kid, but you will not perform as well as you can if you can just keep your weight in check and only have to cut a little bit leading in.
And the reason I'm kind of digging into this is I think it's so important for young kids and girls to hear that.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest pet peeves that I have, I get physically angry when I see a kid cutting weight.
Yeah, I hate that too.
I do not allow it.
I don't like I hate that they even have to worry about the weight. I understand why they have to, but I hate that they even that's even a thing for them. So I have some of the parents in my classes and I just talk to them and I'm like, wherever their weight falls, like
is what it is.
If it's like a pound or two, maybe talk to them, maybe help them, maybe without even telling them, clean up their diet a little bit for them so that they can be in that, that weight class that you want them to be in.
Yep.
But don't make this a thing. Don't make, especially the females, don't make it like this is like what you absolutely have to do, because it will immediately give them some sort of complex. Like they have, and at such a young age, especially females, given the social media and how how they think that they're supposed to look and feel and be. It's too much for kids.
It really is. It really is. And for adults, my biggest thing was I had to, how should I put this? When I started, when you gave me the diet plan, I had to get the I know out of my head. I don't know. I don't know because I'm cutting 15 pounds in 8 days.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I just put all of my trust in whatever you gave me. That's what I did. And
most people don't do that.
Most people won't do that because, I know me. I know my body.
I know that
this.
I do better with just high fat and protein.
Yeah.
That's actually a lot of men.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. You don't know shit. Excuse my language. But I really didn't.
Yeah.
And I will say this. After following that diet plan, increasing carbs and watching what I eat, right? Not pulling fries off of somebody's plate because I want that pleasure.
Yeah.
Really watching my diet. I think Worlds last year was the first time I walked into the venue with a water bottle in my hand drinking.
That's so awesome.
Normally I wasn't drinking water till like 5:30, 6 o'clock after I was done.
Rough. That's so rough.
Terrible.
Especially because like for me, like as a bodybuilder, like you don't really need the water because the only thing I'm doing is getting on stage for 30 seconds, maybe a minute max. Maybe a little longer sometimes. And yes, mind you, you cramp on stage. Everything kind of hurts. However, you are physically fighting someone.
Right.
And so to show up completely dehydrated and expect to perform your best, it's not going to happen. And imagine if you could be at weight and you can walk in with the water and look how amazing you did.
Yeah.
You did phenomenal.
I was so happy.
Yeah.
So one thing that always lingers in my head, and it doesn't manifest until the middle of a match where I'm in trouble, is I would always tell myself, well, you're 20% less than you would have been had you been hydrated. That's what's happening right now. And that is like almost your thumbs up to go ahead and quit. Right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So now that I've eliminated that, I am so much more confident walking in.
I'm not sure you've ever quit.
No.
In fact,
but it gives
you're
you permission.
one of the people where I'm like, man, like you just have that look on your face. Like there is nothing, like you will literally fight through all of it.
Well, thank you. But you should hear what's going on up here.
But it's such a good feeling. I mean, even for me with the bodybuilding thing, like if I know that I have checked every box every day for the last 2 or 3 months, I get on stage, I know I did everything I possibly could to be my very best. It's the same with jiu-jitsu, right? If you know you're on weight and you're walking in with water, you know you're going to be able
100%.
to, you know you're going to be able to execute. And maybe it's your day, or maybe it's you're not, but you know you're going to give your 100%, and you have your 100% to give.
Yep. And you know, everybody's dinged up, everybody's injured, you know, everybody has an elbow or a shoulder. So, but when you compound that with dehydration, malnutrition, because you're not eating right, right? You're still training hard, but you're not eating right. And all of the factors, all the distractions, everything like that, everything piles up. Okay. And I'm not getting any younger. Right. So I've got to do something.
It gets harder. I mean, the older you get, the harder it is. And I mean, honestly, when you're not nourished as the older you get and not hydrated, you're really looking at potentially getting injured. You're really looking at joints not holding up for the long term. And really, for me, the longevity in the sport of jiu-jitsu is the most important thing to me, to be able to just train until I can't train anymore. Yeah.
And I mean, and think of all the bad habits I've developed because of that, right? Now I'm working through them. You know, I'm trying to eliminate those bad habits, like, you know, waking up. And I always tell people I have the advantage over most because I'm not a foodie. I can eat the same crap every single day.
I think that has always helped me. Same here.
It's like a superpower.
Yeah, I'm not a foodie at all.
I don't need anything on my food. It's all the same crap. But that helps. But I don't even consider it discipline anymore. I consider it just what I do.
It's just your habit.
It's just what I do.
It's just your routine. It's your habit. It's just who you've become.
Yeah. And it's not like I consciously go in and be like, okay, I'm only going to eat this. I'm only going to do that. It was like day by day, this is what I do. And I'm so lazy that eating the same stuff every day is perfect for me. Yeah. Because I don't have to think about what I'm going to shop for.
I'm exactly the same way. It's just easy. It's just easy. And I'm glad you even bring that up because with it being easy, I think a lot of people, they don't realize, so you created these habits over time.
Yep.
And when I sit down with clients, this is really where I start with a lot of people, is because they have developed these bad habits over time. They think they know what's best for their body, and maybe they do have some ideas of what's best. But creating the habits, it's so funny when I tell somebody, okay, the very first thing I want you to do, the very first thing is I need for you to drink 3 liters of water a day. And they're like, that's it? And I'm like, yeah, can you do that? Well, yeah, sure. Okay, well then check in with me in a couple days. If you've drank 3 liters of water a day, then we'll be able to move on.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't hear from them. And then I reach out and I'm like, it's been 5 days. So how's the water? Well, I can't get it all in.
Yeah, it's
but
so hard.
What's the next thing? And I'm like, well, if you can't do step 1,
yeah,
you're not going to be able to do step 2.
Yeah.
And so, but then I do have the people that are like, okay, I can do this. And then I'm like, okay, now I need you to focus on sleeping. People don't realize how important it is to recover.
I'm so terrible at that.
But you have developed, I mean, I know because I know you personally, you have really focused a lot in the last year on your recovery.
Yeah.
And I think that that's super important for anyone who's trying to compete at anything.
Yeah.
Recovery is going to be important. And the older you get, the more important it is.
Yeah. If you're a super active athlete, super active.
Yeah.
Okay. You're putting in the work.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about on the couch.
Yeah.
My advice to all people that are really, really athletes, do less.
Oh yeah.
Do less, recover more.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, everything slows down. You just perform better.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, because you're not doing like the 2 or 3 a days that you think you need to be doing. Yeah. You're getting the rest, and when you go in that one time, that's enough because you're able to just kill everybody. Yeah. And then you're done for the day.
Yep. I count my rounds every week, and I make sure I get at least 20 rounds in jiu-jitsu every week.
That's so awesome.
But I will not do a single second more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I got to sit out, I'm going to sit out.
And you found your kind of magic number, and you found that magic number that I think works for a lot of people, especially if they're trying to actually compete.
Yeah. And it helps also that the people I work with, I'm working with a different nutrition coach, and we'll talk about Jenny in a minute, but I work with Vin. Yeah. Right? He's a jiu-jitsu guy. Yeah. I work with you. You do jiu-jitsu. Yeah. So you guys understand what I go through and, what I need to accomplish and how hard it is to get that recovery in. Yep. And I think a couple things you and I talked about. Number one was diet. We always talked about diet and nutrition, and we talked about sleep, especially. And but we talked a lot about recovery.
Yeah.
And I'm telling guys, like, we have a lot of people my age that are starting jiu-jitsu. God bless them.
Yeah.
But
I know. I feel so old sometimes.
But I tell them, like, if you're going to do an hour of hard work, I want you to plan on at least a half hour of recovery to match.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's stretching or just sleeping or getting a nap in, something like that.
Anything.
It all counts.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so recovery for me, no matter if it's jiu-jitsu or the bodybuilding, I'm like hyper focused on the recovery because I'd never been injured and then I got injured.
Yep.
And then I realized that I was slacking a little bit on the recovery. So now that's like such a big focus for me. Ice baths or cryo, cryo is huge.
Yep.
Compression sleeves. If you've got lacrosse balls to roll out sore joints, foam rollers, like you've gotta be able to get in that work.
So what along those lines? Let's just say, like, you have guys, guys and girls that are professionals, right? They have day jobs and they do, they do jiu-jitsu or they're doing CrossFit.
Yep.
For somebody on the go, what would be some kind of active recovery that you would recommend that they could do, like in the office or while they're working or while they're taking care of their kids?
Honestly, like lacrosse, like I always have my lacrosse ball because it's just like if you haven't seen a lacrosse ball, look it up. But my lacrosse ball and my foam roller always sit next to the couch. And so if you're just hanging out at home with your kids, like I'll just roll while Grace is watching her cartoons. We'll hang out. She'll show me whatever. Yeah. The lacrosse ball is great for at work, especially if you're sitting all the time. Like you can literally put the lacrosse ball behind your back and kind of lean back into it. Yeah. Okay. It's great for lower back releasing. It's great for the hips, the glutes. Like you can literally sit on the lacrosse ball. In fact, just a week ago, my coach was having me clear off the entire desk in the hotel room and sit on a lacrosse ball in the areas where I was just super locked up. And it works. Like you just gotta, honestly, a lot of people, I tell them just foam roll while your kids are watching TV. Yeah. Or bring the lacrosse ball to work.
Yeah. And if you don't know how to do either one, YouTube it.
There's so many videos.
Oh yeah. They're fantastic.
So many. Yeah. I've never actually taken a class for that or anything. You get on there, you find that spot that's really sore and you kind of just ease into it a little bit. Don't never force anything. You don't want to be on any body part for more than about 3 minutes. Yeah. If you have one of those compression guns, that's a great option too.
Yeah, those are fantastic. Yeah.
The foam roller and the lacrosse ball first, and then the compression gun second is usually my recommendation.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your jiu-jitsu. Let's call it a journey, right? It started a long time ago, I think, right?
It did, yes.
So Tom is one of my best friends. He's my counselor. He's my. I think he's pretty sick of me because I always vomit all over him with all my problems.
No, he likes being the help. He likes to be able to help.
Yeah, but he's been great. He's one of my training partners. He's one of the coaches. One of my fellow coaches at the academy, and he's been doing jiu-jitsu a long time.
Yes.
I think it only took him a very short time to get his black belt, maybe 35 years. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe 14 or 15 years to get his black belt.
Yeah, I think it's been 14.
Okay. Yeah, so he started in Virginia then.
Yeah, we started together actually. So I had like I had mentioned previously, I was never an athlete in school, and he came home one day. We'd been dating for I don't know, maybe 6 months, and he was like, "Hey, so I decided I'm going to do jiu-jitsu." And I'm like, what the hell is jiu-jitsu? I don't even know what that is. Yeah. I never heard of it, you know? And this was when UFC was just starting to get popular. And he was like, well, I think you should come. There's one girl in the class. And I'm oh, okay. Yeah. And it was an old lady who was super cool. Don't get me wrong. She was super awesome, but she was old. Right. And so he's like, why don't you come and join? And I'm like, okay. And I had no money at the time, and jiu-jitsu is expensive. It
is, yeah.
So we go up there together, and it was awful.
Was it? Oh
no. It's so anyone who trains jiu-jitsu, the first time you get down on the mat and you try to shrimp, or you try to roll over your shoulder, you're like, what?
Yeah, it's
what
terrible.
Are they asking me to do? I feel like a fish out of water.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to connect my mind to my body. I'd never done anything athletic.
Yeah.
So I'm rolling down the mat, log rolls probably.
Well, is this prior to CrossFit and
no, this was way before that. This was before the bodybuilding, before this was when we first met. This was like 14 or 15 years ago.
Okay.
And but I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
Anyone who knows me knows I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I might not be good at it, but I'll be damned if I'm not going to try really hard.
Yeah.
And I trained for almost 2 years actually. And I sucked. I was awful. I was awful. I literally couldn't like conceptually understand what I needed to do.
Yep.
I knew what the movement was, but
Yeah.
to tell myself to do it,
Yeah.
like I just was not good at all. And
So
I feel bad for all my training partners back then. If you're listening to this, I'm sorry.
So I'll have to tell you about my first training partner, Jenny. No, was it Jenny? Oh gosh, why can't I think of her name right now? Anyway, it'll come to me. Anyway, she and I started the same day, so nobody's gonna pair up with us.
Oh yeah,
it was a no-gi day.
No one wants to pair up with like the brand new white belt.
It was a no-gi day. I'm 238 pounds. She might have been 100 pounds.
Oh wow,
maybe.
Yeah.
And I sweat when I eat. So just imagine. That I'm like turning my head, trying not to. I felt so terrible. She was awesome though. She still. I don't know if she's still doing jiu-jitsu, but she was pretty competitive blue belt.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I want to hear about one thing. I don't know if it was you, maybe Amy told me about this. You trained for a while.
Yeah.
Stopped training.
Yeah.
And there was a belt hanging in your garage or in your room.
So they handed out stripes back then. It was a Gracie school.
Yeah.
And I had 4 stripes on my white belt, and we both went, like they do testing. So you have to test out to get your blue belt. I had no business getting my blue belt, let me tell you.
Right.
But we tested out. Tom got his blue belt and I didn't. And it was like at that point where we had just moved to California and we had flown back to Virginia to test out because, I mean, that's what we did. We literally went to jiu-jitsu 3 or 4 times a week.
Wow.
That's just what we did.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I was so disappointed. It was like when you're not an athlete and you've never failed, you've never, played sports and lost anything. I felt like I failed. I felt like I failed, and I felt like I was never going to be good at jiu-jitsu. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to do it anymore. He had found a jiu-jitsu school in California, and the people were amazing. I don't know why I didn't want to go back and train, but the people were absolutely amazing. I still loved, they were at our wedding. We still keep in contact with them. They're just these amazing people. And I found that in all of the jiu-jitsu community. The people in this community are just absolutely amazing. We come together when we need to, and we take care of each other. And it's an amazing community to be part of. But with that being said, it was the only thing in my life that I quit.
Wow.
I quit. I was like, I can't do it. But I kept my belt. And so
you hadn't let go completely.
No.
So,
it was kind of like, man, I worked really hard. But we moved into our house here in Arizona, and we were going through a bunch of stuff, and he was trying to find his gis because he wanted to get back into jiu-jitsu, and he pulled it out. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And, I was pregnant at the time, so jiu-jitsu was completely out.
Yeah.
But we hung it up on a little hook in the garage, and I'd walk past it, and I'm like, why? Maybe I should go back. And then nah, sweaty boys, gross.
Yeah, it is gross.
And then, I don't know. It's funny. I woke up one day and I was like, I'm bored. I'm bored at the gym. Mm-hmm. I had a 1-year-old daughter, maybe 1.5-year-old daughter. And I'm like, I want for her to see that it's good. I can go out there and I can defend myself if I need to. Yeah. And I wanted to bring her up in that community that I've watched so many kids grow up in and turn into these amazing adults.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want her to be part of that. I want to be part of that. And we went to the big Aries Christmas party.
Yes.
And I ended up doing hair and makeup for your wife.
Yes, Amy, I remember that. Yeah.
And a couple of the other ladies that train at the gym. And they were amazing. They were just like, you should totally come in and try. You can totally do this. And I was like, I don't know. Maybe I will.
Right.
But I started thinking about it a lot. And I'm like, well, they're doing it. And their spouses do it. So I just decided one night, I was like, oh, you know what? Will you meet me at the gym? Will you be there when I get there? Because I'm really nervous.
Yeah.
And I walked in and it was like I was just part of the family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've never looked back. Like, it was probably the best decision I've made.
That's awesome.
And I feel like now I'm a different athlete. Like, I still suck at jiu-jitsu, but
We all do.
yeah, like everybody does,
We all do.
right?
Yeah.
But I feel like I understand better. Like, even though I don't understand, like, the technique isn't all there, I know where my body's supposed to go. I know that my hand needs to go here, but I can't remember that next step.
Yeah.
I know that I'm moving in the right direction. And it feels really good to be able to be the smallest. I mean, honestly, at first I'm like, I'm the smallest one here. I don't know anything. Everyone just squashes me. Everything hurts.
Yeah.
But then I started using it like, I am the smallest one here, and I'm going to run circles around you.
Yeah.
And eventually at some point, you're not even going to see me coming.
Yeah.
And so that's been like my, you know, I'm chasing that like feeling of like, oh, I'm faster than you, or I'm, you know, whatever, stronger than a girl that my size. I mean,
Yeah.
for the most part, I am stronger than most women my size.
You are. And one thing I love doing, Kelsey had the same issue. Kelsey's also one of my blue belts. She trains with us over at
And
Aries
one of
East
my
Mesa
favorite
BJJ.
training partners, I might add.
Yeah. So Kelsey was one of my morning people when I was
Yeah.
teaching, and she was the smallest person by a mile. I
Yeah.
think I was the closest to her weight, and I think I've got her by like 80 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can see where that can be.
Yeah, it's a
tough
little.
thing.
It was a little intimidating at first, but again, I'm like super stubborn, and like as I've grown into like the person that I am now, I like being uncomfortable, because when I'm uncomfortable, I'm growing.
Yeah.
I'm becoming a better person.
Yeah.
The more places I put myself in uncomfortable, and the more I take myself out of like that place of like, oh, you know, this feels comfortable, but I don't want to be comfortable. I want people to see that like it doesn't matter what shape or size or how big or small you are. And I love being that person for when people walk through the door at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I've had so many women message me or come up to me even at the academy that were scared, that didn't want to do jiu-jitsu, and like, but they saw that here I am.
Yeah.
I'm this, you know, bubbly, outgoing person. You know, I don't walk around like all, you know, gruff and like angry all the time. Like I'm a happy, bubbly person. You can be happy and bubbly at jiu-jitsu.
100%.
But
I would argue that it makes you happier and bubblier.
I think so.
Yes.
I do. I mean, even on the days where it's really rough,
Yeah.
like you leave and you're like, man, that was tough, but I did it. Like I made it.
Yeah.
But I've had women come up to me and just say, because of you, I have been able to work through like PTSD. Because of you,
Wow.
I left this relationship with an abusive person. Because of you. And like, to me, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing to me. And in my journey through all of this, yeah, I want to see everyone successful. And I think there's like a lot of people out there where they say they want to see you be successful, but really,
Yeah.
they're not cheering for you. But I am everybody's cheerleader.
Yeah.
I will always be everyone's cheerleader. And that's what I want. I want to be that for everybody. I just want to be everybody's cheerleader. I want everyone to know that if they need anything, I'm right here. Whatever you need, just come vent to me.
You certainly are that, and I think that can't be. I think that's underestimated. When people get into coaching, you don't realize the responsibility that you're taking on. Like, you know the role. You know the role, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you study and you're prepared, and you do what you have to do, and you make sure you have a good class, right? And everybody's like engaged, and you know, you try to learn everybody's name. And Tojo and I kind of went into detail on that. But the one thing that people overlook is really the responsibility to the students as a mentor.
Yeah.
Right. As that guide, as that person that inspires them to get out of bad relationships, to get into their body.
Yeah.
I always tell people, if you want to get out of your head, get into your body.
Yeah.
That's step one.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's just something about throwing a kettlebell across the room that makes you feel pretty freaking
Yeah.
good. Right.
Yeah.
So, and jiu-jitsu is the same way. I'll tell you what, the training session I had last night was not my best one. Okay. There was blood all over my gi. It was just like, but it was awesome. Like, I couldn't feel my arms, but I felt amazing.
Yeah.
And
no one who, if you don't train jiu-jitsu, it's such a hard thing to explain to somebody, because honestly, those are the best training sessions.
Yeah.
When you leave and you've got that cut above your eye.
I got worked.
Yeah. Or like, you know, you're bruised to all hell. You know that your ribs are going to hurt tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's such a good feeling, and
Yeah.
you go back for more.
Yeah.
You want it more.
Yeah. And your body's beat up, but your mind is stronger.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
That mental strength is just something that, and I think that's what's the most amazing thing for women is that mental strength that they start building, that confidence they start building. And I think that's really what helped me in my last 2 shows, bodybuilding, was the fact that when I go to jiu-jitsu, no one there cares what I look like.
Right.
Not one person in that room cares. I show up, I have no makeup on. I look like crap. My hair's all over the place. In fact, it's in people's mouths when I'm training. I'm sorry. But they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. And for women, that's really hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard to like be okay in your own skin and be okay with no makeup and just look trashed. But that's the best feeling. You guys love me at the end of the night when my hair's all over the place and you know that I just worked really hard and I gave everything I had that night.
Yeah.
And you leave and it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you look like.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really big thing for women.
I agree. I'd like to go back and just talk a little bit about, you talked about getting out of your comfort zone. And I think it was white belt, 3rd stripe, maybe. You signed up for a jiu-jitsu tournament.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about preparing for that.
Yeah.
And we can talk as in depth or as shallow as you want.
No.
But I remember that tournament a lot because you overcame an injury. You overcame a lot of things that in that time period.
Yeah.
And the result wasn't exactly what you wanted, but it was pretty awesome.
Yeah. I felt like I did really well. I think that, you can't really, you have to, as you have said in the past during some of our training sessions, you have to be prepared for the unexpected. And I wasn't prepared for the unexpected. It was my first time doing a tournament and, I'd never been slammed before. And so, but now I know. And it won't ever happen again. I won't ever do some of the same mistakes and I felt like I learned a lot from that tournament. But leading into that, man, my training was amazing. I had never felt more like an athlete. I never felt like I was faster. I felt like I was starting to, I was just a white belt, but I felt like my technique, like I was starting to like be able to put things together.
Yeah, you were putting a lot of things together.
I felt like I started connecting the pieces, like, maybe just 1 or 2 puzzle pieces, but they were getting connected.
Yeah.
And I felt like, ooh, I'm remembering.
Yeah.
And so I'm remembering time again, and I'm able to add these little pieces. And it was so cool. And then I was training with the guy that you train with, Ben.
Yep.
And he was just really helping with my conditioning. And honestly, he pushed me harder physically than I'd ever been pushed in like an actual training session.
Yeah. I would never push myself as hard as he pushes me. Never.
No.
I would stop halfway
I don't
through.
think I've pushed myself as hard again as he was pushing me getting ready for that tournament.
Yeah.
But I was so determined. It wasn't even about the win. It was just that I was going to show up and I was going to be able to execute what I'd been working on.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you never go out to lose. You always want to go out for the win.
Of course.
But it was more about just executing what I had learned. But at the same time, I was really dealing with a lot of stuff in my personal life.
Yeah.
I had lost my sister and I was devastated. It was like unexpected. And it was my way of, instead of, working through that mourning process, that, just grieving and mourning of that, like it was my way. Like I just dove into the training for that. And it really helped because there were a couple training sessions where I had to get off the mats a few times because I just was emotional. I felt like I really couldn't breathe, even though I knew I could.
Yeah.
It was just like my mind would kind of go to a dark place. And I was like, I just need to get off because I'm not going to affect someone else's training session because of what I have going on.
Yeah, and a heavy heart is so hard to train with. It really is. It's like the heaviest weight you'll ever carry. So,
yeah.
And you handled it with so much grace. I can't tell you. I mean, I'm getting choked up thinking about it because that month was hard on all of us because we care a lot about each other. We care a lot about you. And I just remember, I remember you walking on the mat to train. You're tying your belt. And your eyes are red, your nose is red. Mm-hmm. And we haven't even started doing the hard parts yet. But I knew like your heart was super heavy. And we can talk about this as much or as little as you want. Yeah. But tell me about overcoming that, just pushing through it, because you didn't overcome it. Like you still miss your sister, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I always go back to what Ricardo Almeida said to us when we did a seminar, or he did a seminar for a fundraiser. one of our teammates was losing his fiance to cancer. And he says, we all go through a lot of things, but if jiu-jitsu can make an hour of your day better, then it's worth every second of that hour. And I'll never forget him saying that, because there's been a lot of things that you can overcome, through it. So just kind of walk me through and tell me how it helped.
So that was definitely, I think when I lost my sister, maybe like a week or two later, Josh Cisneros had just started at our school and he was doing a seminar.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been back to jiu-jitsu yet. It was a lot of planning. My parents were going through, as parents losing a child, I literally can't even imagine. So Tom and I actually did all the planning for the funeral and having my sister's kids out. And but then he was doing the seminar and I was like, I gotta go. Like, I gotta get out of the house. I gotta do something. And I just really wanted to be there. I wanted to be there for that. My team, you guys were like my family. And so it was literally the 1 hour and like the 2 weeks that this had within the 2 weeks that it had happened, that I didn't think about it. And it was like such a like weight lifted for an hour, an hour and a half. And it was so nice to just be, and Kelsey, you brought up Kelsey, she really took me in, and she knew when I was training and she'd be there, because she knew that if I needed a second, she was okay to give me that second. And so, I really appreciated having somebody that was a training partner that could just really hang in there with me and like understand if I'm like, I can't do this right now. Yeah.
And I think it's important. I think you would have found that same community
anywhere.
Had you been doing CrossFit or even, your bodybuilding community, because you build these relationships with people and it goes beyond the sport. Right. And one thing I want to tell people is, get into a community now. Yeah. I know there's a lot of introverts and there's, you're introverted. You don't like being around people. I get it. But you just never know when the bad things are going to happen. And bad things are going to happen in my life. But I know I've got a place to go. And I've got people like Tom. I've got people like Chris. I've got people like, that are just going to, we just rally.
Yeah, we do. And rally. That's the community. It's just, I have been part of other communities. And while I do think that my community and CrossFit would have been the same way, I really think that the jiu-jitsu community, when we go through hard stuff, I just feel like everyone just comes together. Like everyone came together. Because when I decided to do that tournament, I had already decided to do the tournament before she had passed away. And so I was like, no, these competition classes, that's where I'm going to get it out. That's where I'm going to just get out all my anger. Because, the stages of grieving, like I was angry. I was pissed. I was mad. I'm like, this isn't supposed to happen. This isn't supposed to happen to me. This isn't, but of course it can happen to anybody. Yeah. And training for that jiu-jitsu tournament just really helped with the grieving process. And training for the bodybuilding show. It was like I finished that tournament and I really wanted to compete again. But I think you could tell I wasn't in like a very good mental, like my mental state wasn't all that great. And you didn't discourage me, but you were like, let's just wait until we see like what kind of comes out on the schedule. Cause it was after COVID and the schedule was still kind of
iffy.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I have to do something, because that's my personality type. I have to always constantly be pushing towards something. Yeah. And I was like, I look and I feel like an athlete. I'm going to reach out and I'm going to do a bodybuilding show. Yeah. And it wasn't even like I thought long and hard about it. Like I just was like, no, I'm going to do this.
This is what I'm doing.
Because a lot of people ask me, well, what made, did you, think about it? Did you research it? And I'm like, nope. I made the decision. And that is actually how I operate. When I decide I want to do something, I do it to my full potential. I don't need to have a list of things that I need to do to maybe make the decision. Nope, I'm doing it.
Yeah. And I think it's, one thing I can say is there's never any doubt in my mind that you're going to wake up tomorrow and do something really freaking hard. Yeah. And then you're going to do something hard the next day, and then the next day and the next day. You're just going to push yourself as much as you can. I always find that my favorite athletes are the ones I have to send home. You know what I mean?
And you've had to do that a few times.
I've had to send you home.
You've had to tell me a few times that maybe training 3 times a day isn't such a great idea.
Probably not a great idea.
Yeah. I'm not like 20 years old like Sierra.
Yeah. But no, I admire that a lot. I think, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to get you on. I think everybody has a story to tell,
Yeah.
but yours is so unique.
Yeah.
Because you were not an athlete growing up, right? Most people are like, oh, I played softball, I did this, I did that. And jiu-jitsu kind of came naturally. Jiu-jitsu was probably the most unnatural thing, right?
It was so unnatural, especially, 15 years ago. And even like when I started back, it was like because I've been to, lots of tournaments that Tom competed at, and I've been around it. It's like, I know the terms.
Yeah.
I know what, I
know what to expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to tell yourself to do it is a totally different thing.
That is a different
To be
animal.
able to like lay down on the ground and get your butt going one way and your legs the other,
Yeah.
and your left arm here and your right arm there. It's different,
Yeah. So let's talk about maybe parallels, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about. Did you ever compete in CrossFit? Did you ever do any competitions?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was not that good.
Okay. That's
I
okay.
was, but I did really well. Like as far as like my own, but I was never the fastest runner, and man, you got to be fast.
Yeah.
I got little legs.
I really love how they do it because I'm not familiar. I only listen to what Amy tells me about CrossFit. I don't know the community. I've done one class.
Yeah.
And I try to keep up. I picked the toughest person in the room.
Yeah.
It was this blonde lady.
Yeah.
And I almost vomited trying to keep up with her.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm the same way.
Yeah. So yeah, she was tough, but I love the way they do it because literally you're competing against everybody in the nation, and then they condense, and then it's regionals, and then you're like, that's when you see your actual competitors, right? And then they go beyond that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
That's how my coach was like the I think they choose 2 from each region.
Yep.
And she was always the one from Northern California.
Yeah, that I think that's
She's
fantastic.
Phenomenal.
But one of the things I want to talk about is there's certain things you do to get yourself ready right before you walk on the competition mat, right before you go into the CrossFit whatever arena, I'll call it, and right before you go on stage to do your bikini competition. You've put in so much work for each one of those.
Yeah.
What is going through your mind, and is it the same thing going through your mind for each one, or does it differ?
It definitely differs. I think that with the bodybuilding now, I'm not nervous at all.
Really?
I don't get nervous. It's not a nervous thing. It's more, I think because I do everything I'm told and I practice my posing.
Yeah.
I think now I've been like really like trying to figure out how can I be better up there. And so it's more about just not focusing on the outcome, but more focusing on that.
Do you focus at all at your competitors? Focus at all on them, or just focus 100% on yourself?
It's super hard not to. Like the girl who won my class at the last show, she walked in the room because it's like they kind of herd us all like we're cattle into like this little room. We're all sweating with this disgusting tan on. It stinks. It smells so bad backstage of a bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
It smells so bad. But yeah, so yeah, it's difficult sometimes, but I put my headphones in, I listen to music, I just put my feet up, I'm just hanging out backstage, literally laying, because you're so dehydrated.
Yeah.
That there's really not much else to do. My coach, both my coaches were there, so they kind of kept me comfortable, and entertained for the most part. But no, I honestly, all I'm thinking is how can I put this? I just want to be up there long enough for them to see like my best posing.
The body of work.
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I was not uncomfortable both times on stage in the last year. It's actually exhilarating, to be honest. Like you go out there and it's like, I'm a different person. I'm just, I'm here. I'm like performing. I'm like, this is what I've done for the last however many months, and I hope you like it.
Yeah. So when I saw you when we all saw you, we're like, she's a freaking rock star.
Aww.
Like you really owned it. It was awesome. And I didn't know this. Tom had to tell me, like, you started off on one end and they're like, okay, these two switch and those two switch and those two switch. And Tommy leans over, he goes, this is good. She's in the middle. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but awesome.
Yeah. So you always want to be in the middle at a bodybuilding show. So they'll do, the way it kind of works is they bring you out as a group and they do comparisons kind of, and then you come out for your individual. So everyone gets their little, 15 seconds on stage to do your little routine. And then they bring out who they think are the top 5 or however many that they're going to choose that night.
Well, what screwed me up is there was an even number. Yeah. So you were next to that person and I didn't know who was the middle. I was like, crap. So,
yeah. You never know. And they like to do that too sometimes.
Oh, okay.
They like to keep you on the edge.
Yeah.
But yeah, being in the middle is the best. That means you probably won.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm super comfortable on stage because I'm comfortable in my skin, which has taken a long time.
Yeah.
And I really credit jiu-jitsu for that. I really do. Like, I think jiu-jitsu made me, because I mean, I don't wear a ton of makeup all the time. When I go out, I like to look nice, but I train more than I do anything.
Right.
And so to get all dolled up, and I put this sparkly bathing suit on covered in rhinestones, and I get to go out there and just smile really big. Like, it's a cool feeling to be out there, and just like, you're the highlight for the minute. You know?
And I love the aspect of dealing with pressure. That jiu-jitsu helps you with that so much, right? You know, parents of the kids team, you know, they're so focused on the moment that I'm trying to broaden, you know, their thought process and just say, this kid is going to be the most confident kid at their job interview that you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
Because they're dealing with pressure all the time. And we're talking physical and emotional pressure, right?
But that's the thing, is like that physical
but it's positive.
pressure.
It's a positive thing.
It's a mental, you flip a switch with that. Like, I really think that when you're put under that kind of pressure as a kid, as a female, as a man, doesn't matter. You're able to deal with so many other things so much better. When you're under that pressure all the time, the little things that bother a lot of people, it doesn't bother you. You're like, whatever. Someone tried to rip my head off this morning. It's not that big of a
totally
deal.
Good. Yeah, I think one of the biggest confidence builders, especially for men. I mean, we like to consider ourselves, not that my wife needs saving, but we like to consider ourselves protectors, right? And when you step onto a jiu-jitsu mat for the first time, you realize how inept you are at it. And it's humbling. I mean, not in a good way. I mean, you feel worthless.
I honestly can't imagine like being a man on a jiu-jitsu mat, because I know how hard it is for me as a female to be a man who that's how you guys think. You are a protector.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of men are ingrained with that.
Yes.
Like, that you are a protector and you want to be able to protect, and there's nothing more humbling than
not being able to.
Yeah.
I mean,
like feeling completely helpless.
Literally,
really.
You can't breathe.
Yeah.
You can't feel your your shoulders. You can't feel your arms.
But that's what makes you come back.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. You know, Amy and I talked about that. We talked about we're always talking about checking your ego. But without ego, you won't come back.
Exactly.
You've got to have some ego, right?
I think ego is actually, if you have a healthy ego, you've got to have a little bit of an ego. Because if you don't have one, you're kind of then your confidence isn't there.
Right.
I think that confidence is kind of built off of having a little bit of an ego.
Yeah, but watching somebody go from couch potato to, I mean, let's be real. I mean, some of those guys look like Vikings now. I mean, they look fantastic.
Isn't it amazing?
Their shoulders are back. Their heads are up.
I
it's
love
so
seeing.
freaking
I mean, we
cool.
have some pretty cool transformations
that
are happening.
We do.
And that have happened within our school, within the academy. One
of the best compliments that I got for our academy was one of our students came up, and he wasn't an athlete growing up. You know, he just showed up because he saw an advertisement for a jiu-jitsu school, and he said, I asked him how things were going, how are you feeling and stuff like that, what I typically do, how I start a conversation. And he says, Coach, this was the best investment I ever made in myself.
Aww. Yeah.
I mean, I got a little choked up. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get water. And
seriously,
I just walked
though,
away.
and that's the thing. Like, when I tell people, it's funny. I feel like I'm like a jiu-jitsu pusher.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've only been training for like 2.5 years, but I'm like such a jiu-jitsu pusher. I'm like, it literally changed my life. Like, I tell people that, and they're like, what? And I'm like, it literally changed my life. Like, it has made me such a confident person. It has made me really come out of my shell. It's made me just this person. I'm like growing into this person that I want to be.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you never knew she existed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's so fantastic. Okay, I want to talk about, I got to get into the goal setting.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to transition, so I'm just going to do it now.
No, that's
all
fine.
right?
Yeah.
So you have held goal setting seminars at our academy, and I'm a little bit different in my goal setting. I will not set goals in January or December.
Yeah.
I will not sit in a room and have somebody say, well, tell me your top 3 goals and let's write those. I don't do that. My goals come to me on a hike. My goals come to me on a long bike ride. My goals come to me when I'm suffering, and my goals, I'll write them in April. I mean, there's 12 months in a year. It doesn't matter when you start it, right?
And that's the thing. Like, I don't really like New Year's resolutions.
I hate those.
But I feel like that's what people are drawn to.
No, because we're expected to.
Yeah,
And it's like a
exactly.
conversation. December, that's the conversation in December.
Yeah.
Right? And you got to have something.
I'm literally always I journal. I like to journal. I like to write things down. And I'm always reevaluating my goals, like looking and seeing if they're still the same thing that I wanted to do. I'm pretty stubborn, so I try to see almost everything I set out to do. I try to see it through. It might take me a little bit longer, but I try to see it through. But sometimes other goals happen that I realize are more important to me.
Yeah.
And so I put those first, and the other ones kind of follow later.
Yeah. So do you focus on one big thing and everything revolves around that?
Not usually.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, I have like personal goals, and then I have like fitness related goals and, family goals. Like I literally kind of just have these things. Okay, well, I want to make sure we go on vacation this year, and I want to be completely present. I want, to not feel like I have to diet, not to feel like, I have anything else going on in my life that's going to stop me from not being there and enjoying the moment.
Okay.
And then I also have, all my fitness related goals, and I'm very fitness related. So most of my goals are driven around that. But also lately my goals are more like mental conditioning, getting into that kind of stuff. Like
I love it.
I want to not just be mentally strong, but I want to be able to have the tools to help other people be mentally strong. I want to be able to influence other people to want to, train their mind.
Yeah. So I consider myself to be pretty mentally strong right now. Mm-hmm. And it helps that, it helps that my wife is so supportive. And I mean, it's just awesome.
Yeah, but you both are very supportive of one another.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm in a place mentally where I know I'm going to be okay.
Yes.
And I love that, because if we could go back, let's call it, oh gosh, man, let's go back 25 years ago. I was so mentally weak. You would not, this is not the same person you're seeing today. It took a long time.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
So, how do you use, and you talked about having mental strength goals. How would you, let's say somebody's 25.
It's hard to quantify that, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. But where would you start if you were like 20, if you went back 2 years ago to 25-year-old you, and you said, okay, I'm going to be more mentally strong. Okay. Where would you start with that?
I would probably start with doing something that you really want to do, but you don't think you're capable of doing.
Oh, I like that.
Because I think that that's really what makes people start coming out and realizing that, okay, I can do this. Whatever it is, it doesn't, if you're thinking about starting a business, if you're 25, this is a time to do it, because it's not going to get any easier. Yeah. If you want to lose the 20 pounds, then figure out what is one habit that I can do every single day that's going to help, get me towards that. And
a little nugget, right? Nothing huge, just little things over time.
I think people fail with their goals because they change everything right away.
Yeah.
If you say, okay, well, I want to lose 20 pounds, I'm going on a diet, I'm drinking all this water, I'm joining the gym, hold on a second. You've been sitting on the couch, you eat potato chips for dinner, and you drink soda all day long. That's not going to work. Let's change one thing at a time. You do that one thing, you create that habit for 2 months, and then you move on. Yeah. Because honestly, people fail because they try to just change everything right away.
Yeah. So one thing that helped me, it was probably one of the biggest and best things that ever happened to me was, because I had such low self-esteem, I thought that, it didn't matter if I showed up. Mm-hmm. Okay. I really had that in my head.
I was pretty bad too.
Yeah. So if I wasn't there, it would be no big deal. So I was the guy that would make plans and then just not show, not call, no text, no nothing.
Oh my goodness.
I wouldn't show because I didn't think it mattered that I showed or not. Right. And I wasn't attention seeking. I really thought that they're going to have fun, whatever. And a good friend of mine told me, he called me up and he says, "Hey man, when you tell me you're going to be somewhere and you don't show, it affects me." He literally said that. Yeah. He goes, "And if you keep doing it, we can't be friends." This is a grown man talking to another grown man, right?
It's kind of crazy sometimes when you meet that person that kind of gives you that reality check.
Yes.
Right? They just straight up tell you something that you'd probably never say to yourself or to anybody.
Yeah.
You know?
And I said that to another buddy of mine. You know, I told him what happened, and he says, yeah, you do that, and it affects us. And I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize I had that effect on people. So now, if I tell you I'm going to be somewhere, I'm going to be there. I'm going to do what I'm going.
Yeah, now I am.
But
Before in the past, I just felt like they didn't really, you know.
Yeah, and that, believe it or not, that habit spilled over into my work life, because I was at a seminar, and it was a sales blah blah blah, and I hate those, by the way, but the guy running it was asking us, like, what's one thing that you allow your customers to do that you don't like? And I said, well, because, I mean, he didn't ask me directly. He asked the group, and I just happened to share. I said, well, I allow my customers to kind of disappear after we have an agreement in principle, and I give them a proposal, and we're kind of in an agreement, and then they just ghost. And he says, I guarantee that's what you do in your life. You're allowing them to do that because that's what you do to people. And I was like, holy crap, I'm a jerk, man. But I never knew it had that kind of effect on people.
Yeah.
But that really was a catalyst that changed a lot of things in my life.
But leading into that, this is like a good, like, kind of segue, is that just recently I have worked really hard in, like, the last year, is how you speak to yourself.
Yeah.
So I don't know if sometimes, like, just recently, like probably 3 weeks ago, right before the show, 3 weeks out from my show, I was headed to the gym. I felt like trash. I was like, and I'm talking so negative to myself. I'm just like, why am I even doing this?
Whoa.
I'm not going to win. I'm too old for this. Like, just, and really murdering myself. It's just being like, this is so stupid. This is so stupid. I'm never going to be successful. I will never be on that pro athlete stage. And like, I'm negatively, you know, and then I get into the parking lot, and I park, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, wait a second. Who the hell are you talking to? I would never say this to any of my friends. Wow. I would never say to you, you're never going to be a Masters World Champion. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would tell you, I wholeheartedly believe you're going to be a World's Masters Champion, because I believe that.
Yeah.
And so having that belief in myself, like, I've really worked hard on that. So leading back into that mental conditioning, and that, you know, what I would tell maybe even like a 25-year-old, you've got to believe in yourself, and don't speak to yourself in like a negative manner, because if you won't say it to your friends, if you won't say it to your wife or your husband or whoever you love, then don't speak to like that to yourself. Yeah. Because all that's going to do is, guess what? You won't win. Yeah. You're not going to do well.
Yeah. So I'll share something with you, and these are the questions I'm going to ask you in a little bit. But I carry index cards with me a lot. And whenever I have a negative thought, whenever it's a lingering negative thought, I'll write it down. And then I'll take that negative thought that I wrote down, and I'll tear it up, and I'll throw it away. And then I'll write a positive thought, just countering that.
That's such a great habit.
It's just you're kind of standing guard, right?
Yeah.
You're not allowing those negative thoughts. Yeah, that's going away.
This is in the trash.
Yeah. And I don't carry a lighter with me, or I'd burn it. Yeah. But throwing away is the next best thing.
But that's essentially what I'm saying. Like, we can't speak to ourselves like that. Those negative thoughts, those negative, like, things that we think about ourselves, you can't do that. So positive self-talk is number one, right? Kind of, right? Like, positive self-talk works most of the time.
Realistic self-talk.
Yeah,
right?
like almost like neutral. Yeah. Like, especially if you're in a situation where you like, there isn't really a whole lot of positive anyway. Yeah. But like, being real about the situation and knowing that, you know, the outcome might not be exactly what you're expecting. Yeah. And I like that quote that you sent me. I'm going to butcher it. Yeah. I'm going to butcher it. But I think I know which one it is. Yeah. About the walking. Yes. Yeah. And can you share that? Because I really like that. It's one of my favorite quotes, because, and I actually have a question for you after this. Ooh, okay. So the man that walks further, let's see, I don't want to butcher it either. The man that loves to walks further than the man that loves the destination. Ooh, yes. And it's so true, right? Because, like, if you think about it with anything in life, like, if the only thing you're doing is just trying to drive towards that destination, once you get there, then what? Are you done? Right. Yeah. Like, because you have your black belt, are you done? Are you never training jiu-jitsu again? I'm just getting warmed up. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So that's my question. What's your why? Like, why? Because you are by far one of the most driven people that I know when it comes, especially you're very hyper focused with the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I mean, you own your own academy.
Right.
You got your black belt in like record time. And like you train like you're a kid.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's very kind of you to say. But I will tell you this. I genuinely love the process. And I've known that not very long. When I was doing triathlon, I did triathlon for a few years, and it was mostly a coping mechanism. I was going through a hard time, so got into my body.
Yeah.
But when I was doing triathlon, I would literally get into the water to start, because you start in the water, and you get in this pool of humanity in the water, right? And I'm in tears. Like, I could not see through my goggles, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's over. I know I'm going to finish. I put in all the work, right? It's just a matter of when I cross the finish line. I mean, I'll crawl if I have to, right? But I love being the only person on the road on a bike during a monsoon in the rain and muck. I love that. I love getting up in the morning and going to jiu-jitsu and, blood on the gi and just a sopping wet mop of sweat. I love it. I love every bit of it. I love waking up sore. I love washing gis. That's my why. I love the process. If I won Worlds tomorrow, September, but if I won Worlds, I would certainly shed some tears, because the process is over at that point. And then I would start the very next day.
Start over. It's like starting over. It's just like now moving forward into like the next.
Yeah. I'm on a 52-week training camp.
Yeah.
Perpetually.
I mean, because there is no end to jiu-jitsu. And I think, honestly, that's the most beautiful thing about it for me, is that because that's me. Like, I don't want to just have a destination. And honestly, I think sometimes in the past, that's been the problem, is I get off stage or I'm done with the, reaching that goal that I set for myself. And then it's like, well, now what?
Yeah.
But with jiu-jitsu, I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't care how good you are. You're going to get caught.
Oh yeah. Everybody gets caught.
Everybody gets caught. And like, that is so beautiful to me, because there's just so much learning. Yeah,
it really is. Well, listen, we've been going for almost an hour and a half. Can you believe it?
Yeah, that's a long time.
So we're going to close it out. But before we do, I want to make this a habit of going through some questions. Now, there's no wrong answers. All right. Well, maybe a couple. But there's no wrong answers in this one. So first thing that comes to mind, okay? All right. So name a game show you think you can actually win.
Ooh. Maybe Wheel of Fortune?
Wheel of Fortune. Is that the only one you thought of, or is that like...
No, I think I'm pretty good at figuring out words. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Right. What's your favorite cheat meal?
My favorite cheat meal? Probably In-N-Out.
All right. What's the longest you've gone without brushing your teeth?
Maybe half a day.
Okay.
I can't handle not brushing my teeth.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, You Give Love a Bad Name.
Nice. What? Let's see. What's a really dumb song you actually secretly like?
Oh, a really dumb song I secretly like.
Yeah.
I don't. All the Britney Spears songs. They're not that good, but I love them.
I'll share mine. Bootylicious is pretty catchy.
It is pretty catchy.
I'm just saying. I would never play it out loud in front of anybody. All right. Do you kill bugs, or do you yell for help?
Both. It depends on how big it is.
Do you prefer to sleep in or take naps?
Sleep in.
All right. Do you use a public restroom or hold it?
Public restroom.
Oh, nice. All right. Okay. If you could pick one, would you go back in time or forward in time?
Oh. That's a tough one.
There's no why to it. Yeah, just pick one.
Back in time.
Back in time? All right. Rolling Stones or Elvis?
Elvis.
All right. That was going to be the wrong answer. Very good.
No,
Very good.
I love Elvis.
Me too.
I grew up with Elvis.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is probably one of my two favorite podcasts. that I've ever had. No,
I feel like I had so much to say, but I didn't say half of it. So.
Well, we'll have to do it again then.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm like, oh yeah, and there's all these things to say, but I can't get it out fast enough.
So I think what we could do is after your next show or competition or something, we can kind of, do a deep
I'm
dive.
back at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, so there you go. We'll see if we get you back on the competition mat.
Yes.
We'll do a debrief on that one.
Okay, yeah, that sounds awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Tiffany.